First, I want to start this video off by saying I want to give props to Vex for making this video, because making a video like this, it's not easy at all. The fact that he's so informed on like every style in the game, it's quite impressive. But in my opinion, if you weren't a part of a specific group, then I think you're probably not too knowledgeable in that area. What I mean is you can know a lot on the surface of a lot of things, but I don't think Vex goes too deep into, like, for example, RNG. Luckily, I'm here to shed some light into the RNG part that he talks about in his video. Now, to start off his video, he has these criterias. His criteria for his ranking is how good was the crew, what are their accomplishments, what have they done, and their legacy. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about like the prime of RNG, because in his video, all of his rankings were based about how good these crews were in their prime. He even mentions this in several comments and in his video as well. All his rankings are based on the prime of how good these crews were in their prime. Therefore, I'm going to talk about the prime of RNG. Okay, with that out of the way. How good was RNGK? I'd say during the prime of RNGK was the best crew. And I'm not just saying that because like I'm in it, because during the prime of RNG, I wasn't in RNGK. I was an observer back in the days. I actually wished I was in OTG before RNGK. But I only wished I was in OTG because I didn't feel like I was good enough to join RNGK. OTG seemed more available to me. RNGK just seemed not available to me at all. That's why I wanted to be OTG back then. But RNGK during the prime of RNG was better. They had the strongest players. They had probably the most influential leader in the entire era of RNG, bro. Like literally from 2013 to 2023, I'd say RNGK had the strongest leader ever of all time. Because I have not seen anyone come close to be as like influential as Gold. I'd say it's either me or Darklord who are like the second most influential people in RNG. But even I feel like I wasn't as influential as Gold. But that's besides the point. The point is, how good were they? I'd say RNGK was the best crew during the prime. And there's a reason why RNGK and OTG were rival crews. But I'll get to that a little later in the video. The first criteria, how good are they? I'd say RNGK was the best crew during the prime. And I will explain why a little later in the video as well. The legacy and their accomplishments. I think these two go hand in hand, right? What are their accomplishments? What have they done? Bro, Gold literally created RNG in GTA. And when I say he created RNG, I don't mean he invented RNG, the whole style itself. Because sure, there were people probably playing RNG since the 1980s, right? Like that's what people like to claim, that they've been playing RNG since the 1980s. But when I say Gold created RNG, I'm specifically talking about GTA RNG, nothing else. I'm talking about GTA 5 RNG. Gold actually did create that. With RNGK being the first RNG crew ever made in the game, and with RNGK members creating the first RNG maps that we all still play to this day, like Run and Gun Upgrade, Training Facility 2, Run and Gun, Gangbang, Face to Face. All of these maps were made by RNGK players. Gangbang, Face to Face, Run and Gun Upgrade, those were made by Tuco. Run and Gun, which your members love to play hide and gun in, was created by No Nanny, which is an RNGK member. From teaching sidesteps, from teaching how to switch kill, all of these techniques came from RNGK. From creating the rules, rifles and pistols only. That's why we don't use machine guns. That's why we don't use shotguns in RNG, because Gold made these rules, pistols and rifles only. He made those rules in GTA. That's not even half of the legacy RNGK has left. RNGK created the most interesting era for RNG, I'd say. Not only from having the strongest members, but also from keeping the game interesting. I mean, come on, bro. The whole OTG versus RNGK thing, that's part of the legacy, I'd say. That I think OTG and RNGK share that legacy, though. But if there was no RNGK, OTG wouldn't be as motivated, I don't think. So OTG became motivated. Darklord aspired to become better thanks to RNGK. So I'd say from the fact that it created RNG, from being the first RNG crew ever made in the game, from having the most influential players, teaching sidesteps and all of this, I'd say RNGK had a legacy that cannot be topped by any crew. Any crew. I don't think any crew can top the legacy RNGK has. Okay, so Vex likes to say that RNGK didn't play CVCs or 1v1s, and here's where the lack of knowledge comes through, because, you know, Vex wasn't here during the prime, so he doesn't know everything. He only knows what he saw, right? He only knows like the surface, like the tip of the iceberg. Thankfully, I'm here, right, to shine the light, to expose what really went down during the prime as someone who was actually there. So, RNGK didn't play CVCs or 1v1s. It's true. They didn't play 1v1s because 1v1s never mattered in RNG competitive. No one really took them seriously. People did play 1v1s, but they probably played them for fun. The whole entire thing of RNG was always crew battles. And RNGK played a lot of CVCs. Okay, well, here's the thing about the CVCs part. RNGK and OTGX, they had what I would call like branches of crews. RNGK had these crews they would share players with, like Pistol, Milk, BPMR, MobF, LGSC. All of these crew tags that I just mentioned shared players with each other. They were like on the RNGK side, I'd say. And RNGK members would always play CVCs under these different crew tags, including their own. The RNGK tag would be used in CVCs back then. And the same thing goes to OTGX. OTGX did the exact same thing as RNGK. They would use crew tags like PleaseX, Evil, Fear, the Corleone family, TCFX. These are crew tags OTG would use during the prime. And RNGK and OTG players were always CVCing each other under these tags. You know how I mentioned these branches that crews would use to CVC? I want you guys to keep these in mind because it's very important. So RNGK was an influencer crew, is what Vex said. He said during the prime, RNGK didn't play CVCs. They were more of an influencer crew. And to that, I'd say they, first of all, they did play CVCs. But yeah, I agree. It was an influencer crew back then. But influencer back then had a different meaning than it does now. To be an influencer like during the prime of RNG, you actually needed skills. If you were big on YouTube as an RNG player back then, it was because you were highly skilled and respected in the scene. I'm gonna use RNG Legends as an example, and like, no offense to RNG Legends, but he was never big during the prime. He grew his channel when the competitive era of RNG was basically over. RNG Legends was an influencer as well, but he was more of an influencer by your definition. He influenced noobs. I can't find another word to put it, but yeah, RNG Legends influenced like noobs to start getting into RNG. The influencers back then, I must say another influencer back then, Darklord. Darklord was an influencer back then, but his influence is not the same as RNG Legends. RNG Legends influenced noobs to get into the game, while Darklord influenced good players to get better so they could potentially join OTGX, or so they could support him and his fight against RNGK. You were an influencer back then because you were a top player in the game, most likely. Today, you are an influencer because you have subs. There's a huge difference. Back then, you needed skills. Today, you could just have subs and be an influencer. Darklord Slander. All right. I mean, the way you talked about Darklord in your video was actually crazy. You were calling him what, like, that he was a clown, that he was trash, that he hides behind his crew, and how he only talks about his accomplishments from 10 years ago. And to that, I'd say Darklord was actually like the best player during the prime. And this is me just speaking facts. This is coming from someone you call a Gold Revolvers fanboy. Darklord was literally like the best player during the prime. And I'd even say like he was better than Gold in terms of skills. So to hear you say these things about Darklord was insane, to say the least. Because Darklord was no clown back then. He was a beast, bro. Like, he was literally I'd say he was what Deathcom is today. What Deathcom is today was what Darklord was during the prime. Everyone believes today Deathcom is the best player. And I'd say that he probably is. He probably is. And during the prime, Darklord was the deathcom of today's era. So Darklord was definitely not bad at all. He was far from that. Okay, now I want to talk about his ranking. So in his ranking, he put OTGX as number 5, I believe. And he put Legion Salute Clan above OTG. Like, he put 2 crews in his video, 2 RNG crews. And he put Legion Salute Clan above OTGX. And the reason why he did this was because Legion Salute Clan beat OTGX in the CVC. That's quite logical, right? Like, that makes total sense. If that crew beat this crew, that's because that means it's better. There's no other way to put it. The thing though, I don't think Vex knows a single Legion Salute Clan member. I don't think he can name one off the bat. But here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to look up the Legion Salute Clan CVC video versus OTGX. Here's one of the scoreboards. So on LGSC team, we have Mattia DJ, No Nanny, Lighting, and No R1 Pure Gamer. These are all Legion Salute Clan's players. Now, if you're an OG player, you know these names. You know what crew they come from. These guys, they're all RNGK players. Remember earlier when I said that RNGK and OTG would use different crew tags for CVCs? This is one of those instances. RNGK is using the LGSC tag to CVC OTG. That's what happened here, and they won. Now for Vex to be saying OTG had the superior players is also a misunderstanding, because, you know, Vex doesn't know these players. He doesn't know them. He wasn't there. He wasn't there during the prime. So he doesn't know any of these LGSC players. He doesn't know about the beef RNGK and OTG had. He thinks RNGK was just an influencer crew. But the reality was, they were always doing CVCs, and they were always using different tags. And in this instance, RNGK used LGSC to beat OTGX. And I know people will say it's toxic to say this is RNGK because the tag they used is LGSC. The thing is though, it was Darklord who started that. So when Darklord CVC'd RNGK and won, the tag they were using was TCFX. But what Darklord did in his title when he uploaded that video was put OTGX. Like if it was OTGX versus RNGK. But it wasn't OTGX, it was TCFX. So we're just gonna do what Darklord did. This was RNGK versus OTGX right here. And the RNGK won. So in terms of Vex's ranking, putting Legion Salute Clan above OTGX, but also saying OTGX had the superior players, is extremely contradicting. Legion Salute Clan's team was RNGK. So the reality is, and this is something I always stood by, bro, RNGK always had the superior team in the prime of RNG against OTGX. In today's world, you could say OTG is better because they play CVCs. They do have competitive players now. I even admit that, bro. RNGK is, like, I love RNGK, but I'd say in 2023, I don't think RNGK could beat OTGX because RNGK does not have like those CVC players that we need. A lot of RNGK players quit the game. They retired. Bro, literally the only players left is me and Seba and Splashy. And I don't play CVCs. I barely play the game. I only play when I stream. And Seba only plays public TDMs. He's not a CVC player. He's not mainly one. And all of OTG's roster right now that plays like Deathcom, Vice, those are all CVC players. So in today's world, yeah, maybe OTG can beat RNGK, but since Vex's video is about how good these crews were during their prime, RNGK was superior to OTG. It was superior. And RNGK was also superior to Legion Salute Clan. And no offense to Legion Salute Clan, like, I consider Legion Salute Clan a top 10 crew, but if I'm being real, RNGK was superior to these both of these crews. They had the more superior players. That's why Legion Salute Clan used RNGK players for the CVC, because Legion Salute Clan original players, I don't think they probably might not have beat OTGX. That's why they had to use RNGK. If that was too much to understand or process, I'm gonna give you guys the short version. So what Vex basically did without knowing is put RNGK above OTGX in his video. He doesn't know that though, because he doesn't know any of these players. All of these players are OGs, and Vex does not care about OGs. He only cares about like the tip of the iceberg, like I said. But here I am giving you guys the facts. These are all RNGK players. This is RNGK versus OTG. This is RNGK beating OTG. And in my opinion, RNGK was the superior crew and during the prime. With that out of the way, there are a few more things I want to address that Vex says. He says that RNG is dead because it's the only community ignoring new players because they're not OG. And to that I say, I have given exposure to a lot of new gen players. I've given exposure to Seba, he's a new gen beast. Splashy, one of the best new gen players. Lucas, also one of the best new gen players. Toxics, one of the best Xbox players in 2023. Deathcom, I've done a dual taj with Deathcom. All of these videos have gotten pretty good views for the state that RNG is in. So I've definitely done my part. I've definitely given my flowers to the new gen beasts that deserve it. The reason why RNG is dead is because it just naturally fell off. CVCs are just not possible anymore in 2023. Too many people use programs, they use Xlag, they use lag switch, they play hide and gun in CVCs. So the competitive scene completely died because of that. The only CVCs that are available still are face-to-face, which it's always the same people. It's always Deathcom and Splashy versus Lord Killas and Varese or something, right? It's always the same people playing face-to-face CVCs. And I mean, in terms of influencers, I'm literally the only RNG YouTuber. I think it's just me, man. Or are you gonna say Stepfo is an RNG YouTuber? Because Stepfo has no influence in RNG. Deathcom has a bit of influence when it comes to like RNG, but his reach is not big enough, sadly, and he's burned out, so he might quit soon. The only other person who was an RNG influencer was Famous, but he moved on to free mode. RNG was never as big as free mode. That is the real reason why all these other areas are still striving. Because bro, everyone knows about free mode. Everyone and their grandma and their mom knows about free mode. The sniper community is still thriving because it's part of free mode. The beach is still thriving because it's a part of free mode. Base is still thriving because it's part of free mode. RNG is not a part of free mode. It's a niche. It's a very, very small niche. You have to be like an actual like PvP player to learn about RNG. On the surface of things, people will know what free mode is. If they search just a teensy bit into the PvP side of GTA, they'll learn about beach. Beach will be in their face. AW, they'll learn all about this. But if they want to get deep into it, then maybe they'll learn about RNG. Maybe they will. That is why RNG is not as big as these other communities. But I think you do have a point that I could be doing different things. I gotta admit, I'm pretty bored with what I do. I've been a public TDM player for like the longest, and that's because it's like the easiest thing for me to do. But I should be a little more innovative, I feel like. I should have new ideas or fresh content, which I feel like I don't. I feel like I don't. And you are completely right about that. I could be doing something different or something else. And to that I say, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. My mind is not completely dried out. I still have ideas. Just need to make them into reality. But it's not easy, man. When you're the only RNG YouTuber left, it is not easy. I guess his last comment that he said to me, he said, if you loved RNG, you would try to fix it. And to that I say, like, have you not been seeing what I've been doing since 2018? I've been keeping this style alive for the past like 5 years. Look, I've been on YouTube since 2015. RNG died. It literally died around 2017. And then my channel blew up around 2018. And since then, I've been doing my best to keep it alive. And I even get people telling me that if I were to leave RNG, then it would be completely dead. And I think you recognize that as well, since you said I'm the only one with the influence or recognition to be able to like change things around. Well, I am not leaving anytime soon, because my story here is not over yet. I've kept RNG alive for the past 5 years, and I'm sure I'll figure out a way to make it more alive again. I'm low-key, sometimes I feel tired about it, bro. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years already, keeping this style alive by myself. Like, it's basically just been me, man. No one else tries to keep RNG alive. It's literally just me. RNG should have died in 2017. But because of me, RNG continued to thrive a little for the past 5 years. Yeah, like I said, I'm basically the only RNG YouTuber now. So this is not easy at all. It's not easy at all. I probably have the biggest challenge when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to being a GTA YouTuber, I have the biggest challenge to overcome. And I'm gonna face it. I'm gonna face it head on, man. Like, my story here is not over. But yeah, I wanted to make this video just to shed some light to the misunderstanding. Because I know Vex, he knows a lot. He's a very smart person. It's obvious. It's very clear that he's a very smart person. He knows a lot about the game and the competitive sides. But in terms of RNG, he doesn't know the deep end of it. He kind of just knows like the surface part of it. So as someone who came from the deep part of RNG, I just wanted to shed my light and knowledge of what I have seen and learned from the game. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys drop a like. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.